Hi. Um, so at Rocketship Forza Community Prep, in kindergarten, we measure their achievements in three different ways. The first one is our foundational literacy tracker, where we keep track of their achievement in letter names, sounds, and sight words. Our NWEA, which is an adaptive test, and our step test, which is how we follow along their reading levels. The first one is the foundational tracker. I use this to guide me on a daily basis, especially because phonics is one of the most important blocks that a kindergartner is ever going to receive. I firmly believe that kindergarten is the most important grade level that our students are ever going to have. For most of them, it is their first exposure to school. Some of them get lucky and they get to go to preschool or TK, and it gives them like a stronger foundation. But for those who don't have that opportunity, kindergarten is their first year at school. So it's really difficult for them because they're just trying to get out of the habit of being with mommy and daddy all day and come to school and to learn. And one of the biggest things is letter names and sounds along with sight words. If my phonics block is not strong enough and my students are not learning the letter names and sounds, I cannot expect my students to learn to write basic CVC words. And if I am not teaching them sight words when they are getting ready to read, it's going to be really difficult for them because almost every other word inside a sentence is a sight word. Um, the next one that we use is the NWEA, and that's a quarterly given exam. Unfortunately, with this pandemic that hit, we don't have end results for this year. Um, but I do believe my kinders were learning, and I don't pay too much attention, to be honest, to the NWEA, mostly because out of 5 and 6 year olds, they don't know how to take tests. So I try not to put too much emphasis myself on that exam. Um, the other one that is STEP, that is the one that I do put in a lot of emphasis into because it allows me to see if my students are developing the proper reading skills that aligns with my phonics lessons, because they'll be able to decode CVC words and identify the sight words that are inside the reading pattern. So that is why, for me, the most emphasis that I give in my classroom are STEP and the literacy tracker. Something that I'm really proud of this year is that 77% of my students, by the time it was October, had already learned their letter names and sounds. The goal for our network to have the percentage to be met for letter names and sounds by October was around 60%. Um, I had more of a sense of urgency because I was pregnant and I was about to give birth. I had about a month left. And I thought that I would be able to reach 100% of my students master their letter names and sounds. But I overworked myself and I went into labor early. Um, and that's where I had to stop. And so 77% of my students were able to learn all their letter names and sounds and fluently write CVC words within the first 2.5 months of school. And I'm actually really proud of that accomplishment because to get 5 and 6 year olds to fully write CVC words and to learn all their letter names and sounds and start beginning them to read within the first 2 months of kindergarten is really difficult, but I'm actually very proud of that hard work that I did. Um, Something that I do want to improve is my writing skills with my kindergartners, because yes, I can teach them how to write basic CVC words and I can teach them the sight words that they need to recognize in order to become fluent readers, but I would also really love to expand their writing skills just to make sure that they have a really strong, solid foundation to move into first grade. Um, I get really worked up and passionate about making sure that my kids do not fall behind, because I know that if I don't do my job in kindergarten, I am going to be that teacher who is creating the education gap for them, and I refuse to be part of the problem. I feel like our ELL students, they are always underserved, especially in kindergarten, because teachers tend to be like, oh, well, they don't really speak the language, so I guess it's okay. And they decide to move them on. And I definitely don't agree with them. I get really passionate and, like, most of the time really upset that there is not a thrive from all kindergarten teachers to make sure that our kids are reading by the time they leave kindergarten, because when kids aren't left when kids leave kindergarten and they're not at a reading level yet that they're supposed to be, school just becomes really, really hard for them, and it unmotivates them. And unfortunately, that negatively impacts them. And I can speak to that in as a personal experience that I myself experience with my daughter every single day. She really struggles with school. And I know it happened because she didn't have the strongest foundation. So I refuse to be part of the problem. I always say that I'm going to give everybody's child the best education that I can give, because I want my children's teachers to give them the best education that they possibly can. Because all of our students, it does not matter if they are Latino, if they are Vietnamese, if they are Black, if they are white, they deserve the best. And I'm here to do that for them. Thank you for your time.